Hey guys, Edward here from Edward79, the mixed content creator. There are lots of foods to choose from at your local grocery store, and some are definitely more addictive than others. It turns out that there are three main things that determine a food's addictiveness: fat, sugar, and salt. All three have been shown to make a food super addictive, as shown by the fact that every food on this list has at least one of these three super addictive substances. So without further ado, here are the top 10 most addictive foods on Earth. When it comes down to cheese, there are lots of options. From cheddar and provolone to Swiss and Colby Jack, there are so many different varieties of cheese. But all of these varieties have one thing in common, and it's that they're highly addictive. This really shouldn't come as a surprise considering cheese is loaded with saturated fat, but believe it or not, fat is actually not the only reason why cheese is addictive. Because it turns out that a protein called casein, which is found in all dairy products for that matter, is actually what's brewing up addiction. How? Glad you asked. You see, when it's digested, casein breaks down into compounds called casomorphins, which are actually frighteningly similar to opioids and bind to the very same receptors that heroin and other narcotics bind to. But the fat ain't messing around either, as the fat content in cheese also plays a huge role in making cheese addictive. So the next time you eat cheese, just be aware that cheese is just about as addictive as narcotics, and once you start, you just can't stop. Cake. It's sweet, creamy, and very addictive. This is in large part thanks to sugar, which is a whopping 4 times more addictive than most hard drugs. In fact, new research claims that cake is just as addictive as cigarettes and cocaine. That's because sugar causes your brain to release dopamine, and you start craving that hit of dopamine every time you eat sugar, leading to a long-term addiction. Of course, sugar isn't the only thing that causes cake to be addictive. It's also very fatty because fatty ingredients such as eggs, butter, and vegetable oil can all be found in cake. This, in turn, makes cake one of the most addictive foods on Earth. Overall, sugar is highly addictive, just as addictive as nicotine or cocaine, which is just proven by the fact that there are a lot of sugar-laden sweets on this list. Soda is one of the most popular drinks here in the United States of America, and there's actually a good reason why. And that reason is that soda and soft drinks are pretty much next level addictive. This is primarily because soda and soft drinks are both absolutely loaded with sugar, which, like I said before, is just as addictive and hard to quit as smoking. What's worse, sugar in soft drinks is often replaced with high fructose corn syrup or artificial sweeteners, which are equally addictive as sugar, work pretty much the same way to get you hooked, and are arguably even worse for you than regular sugar. But it's not just the sweet stuff in soft drinks and sodas that you'll have to worry about. Caffeine is another habit-forming substance that's not just in soda, but also in foods and drinks such as tea, coffee, and a food further down this list. So just note that every time you take a swig of soda, you're signing a long, hard-to-break, and even potentially dangerous contract of long-term addiction. This one may be an American icon, but cheeseburgers really do pack a triple threat when it comes to addictiveness. For one, cheeseburgers are loaded with fat, and two, the buns often contain crap tons of sugar. Oh, and don't forget about the ridiculously high salt content. But the patty itself is also highly addictive, as the wild variety of complementary flavors made by the Maillard reaction makes hamburger patties really addictive. In addition, cheeseburger toppings provide flavors that go excellently together, further strengthening this already addictive food's addictiveness. The addiction potential of this fast food option is exacerbated even further by the fact that burgers are cheap and convenient, let alone that burger joints are pretty much everywhere here in the States. In summary, cheeseburgers may seem ordinary, but they can pack a mean punch of cold, hard addiction. Let's be honest, us Americans are infatuated with fried potatoes. French fries, hash browns, potato chips, and more are all favorites of Americans. But these fried potato dishes are also ridiculously addictive. And believe it or not, there's actually quite a lot of dispute going on as to why French fries are so addictive. Some believe it's the double punch of salt and fat, while others believe it's the way they're fried. But fat, salt, and certain cooking methods like frying all increase the amount of feel-good hormones released when you eat a food. So my best guess is that the French fries' addictive potential comes from a combination of all these factors. But there's actually another something in these fried potato sticks that makes them addictive. A chemical called monosodium glutamate, or MSG. While it's not physically addictive, it is emotionally addictive because the glutamate in MSG activates the pleasure centers in the brain, making eating it a very pleasurable experience. So with fat, salt, the fact that they're fried, and MSG, it's really no surprise that French fries are easily one of the most addictive foods on earth. I scream, you scream, we all scream for ice cream. It's a very popular song, but is there any truth to its title? It turns out, yes. Ice cream is an extremely addicting food that can become habitual fast. Here's why. Remember when I said that sugar hacks your brain in the same ways as crack? Well, the same principle applies here, as ice cream is literally one of the most sugar-laden foods you'll ever eat. Combine that with crap tons of fat and you have addiction simply waiting to happen. As the sugar and fat melts on your tongue, feel-good chemicals like dopamine get fired up. You crave this dopamine rush over and over and over again until it's a full-blown addiction. And like with so many other foods mentioned previously on this list, an ice cream addiction is very, 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 very hard to break. Because as I talked about previously, sugar is basically edible cocaine and you are not going to change my mind about it. As one of the most ubiquitous snack foods, cookies are one of the few foods on this list that have all three ingredients of addiction: sugar, fat, and salt. These substances combine in order to trigger various brain responses that are frighteningly close to those that drug addicts feel after consuming substances they're addicted to. But the cookie's addictive potential is strengthened in the chocolate chip cookie. The reason why I say this is because this cookie in particular has one of the most addictive ingredients on earth. It's not salt, it's not butter, and it's not even the frighteningly addictive sweetener that is sugar. It's a mystery ingredient that I'll reveal later. But the most addictive cookie of all is the Oreo cookie. The creamy filling, crunchy exterior, high sugar content, and ridiculous amounts of trans fat all make it addiction simply waiting to happen. This all sounds bad to say the least, but this next food, a fried potato snack that us Americans are infatuated with, is even worse. Remember when I said that us Americans are obsessed with fried potatoes back when I was talking about French fries? Well, it turns out that another form of fried potato chips, are even more addicting. They're actually so addictive that this fried potato snack has gotten loads of notoriety due to its potential for addiction. Although potato chips are low in sugar, for once, they more than make up for it with fat and salt. These are two things that both make potato chips addictive and give it a hell of a lot of notoriety. However, there's another lesser known reason why chips of any kind are addictive: the crunch. Many people find it very satisfying, and combine it with the fat, oil, and salt, and you get a hyper addictive snack that us Americans are absolutely obsessed with. Now, don't get me wrong, us Americans are obsessed with fried potato in general, but the next food on this list isn't fried and crunchy, but is another sugar-laden snack that, believe it or not, I'm actually addicted to myself. Remember when I said there was a mystery ingredient that makes chocolate chip cookies extra addictive? It's the chocolate chips, and for good reason. Chocolate is one of the most addictive foods to ever exist, and believe it or not, I'm actually addicted to the stuff myself, as you should know from the loads of videos I posted being related to or featuring this cacao confectionery. But I digress. There are two main things that make chocolate hyper addictive: sugar and fat. Sugar, like I said before, hacks your brain in the same way as many hard drugs, while fat gives chocolate a rich, smooth consistency. Combine these two hyper-addictive ingredients into a chocolate bar, and you have the most addictive snack on earth. Chocolate is actually so addictive that we even have our own separate word for someone who's addicted to chocolate, a chocoholic. The consumption of chocolate also heightens a brain chemical called enkephalin, which triggers receptors frighteningly similar to those triggered by opioid use. So it turns out you really shouldn't be surprised that I'm addicted to chocolate. After all, it is more addictive than heroin and morphine. But before we get to the number one spot, here are some honorable mentions that didn't quite make the list. Buttered popcorn. For having so much damn fat and salt that this movie theater snack can become a legit addiction. White bread. Because the flavor, texture, glycemic index, and sometimes even added sugar makes white bread a seemingly ordinary food that's actually wildly addictive. Fried chicken. For the simple reason of being fried, and Americans especially love fried food of any kind, as long as it's fried. Bacon. Because it's ridiculously fatty, loaded with salt, and also has added sugar. The threatening trio of addiction. And now, as one of the most commonly eaten foods here in the US, pizza's trio of simple carbs, added fat, and salt makes it crazily addicting, even more so than other madly addictive foods like cheese, chocolate, or chips. And speaking of cheese, you may actually remember that it was a food I mentioned earlier on this list, as it's another highly addictive food. What that means is that cheese is so addictive that the addition of cheese actually boosts the addiction potential of pizza by a landslide. And I should also note that pretty much every part of the pizza is addictive in some way. The pie is loaded with simple carbs, the meat is rich and loaded with fat, the cheese has ridiculous amounts of fat, and the sweet sauce completes the addiction criteria. Pizza and its toppings are also jam-packed with a compound called glutamate, which is insanely addictive and can be found in tomatoes, cheese, sausage, and pepperoni, all of which are pizza toppings. Overall, pizza is considered to be the most addictive food on earth due to an explosive combination of wildly addictive ingredients and flavors. So there you have it, the top 10 most addictive foods to ever exist. We hope you enjoyed this video. As always, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!